Welcome to Nexus Prime, the most prestigious space station in the known galaxy, where, today, marks the 300th anniversary of the Galactic Chess Championship. And let me tell you, this isn't your grandmother's chess tournament. This is the kind of event that makes entire civilizations hold their breath, place bets with their GDP, and, occasionally, start wars over seating arrangements. The station's main arena buzzes with excitement as representatives from 47 different species gather to witness what most consider the ultimate test of strategic brilliance. Floating holographic displays show betting odds in 17 different currencies, including something called quantum ducats, that apparently exist and don't exist simultaneously until observed. At the center of it all sits Commander Vex Thornwall, the reigning champion and quite possibly the most arrogant being in 3 star systems. Picture a 7-foot-tall humanoid with 4 arms, silver skin that literally gleams under the arena lights, and eyes that seem to calculate the probability of your existence before deciding you're not worth the computational power. His species, the Zephyrians, are known for 2 things: their superior intellect and their insufferable need to remind everyone about it every 5 minutes. Vex hasn't lost a match in 12 years, not one. His strategic mind is so renowned that 3 different universities have named theoretical frameworks after him, and there's actually a small cult on Rigel 7 that worships his championship trophy. He sits at the ornate playing table, his 4 hands arranged in what can only be described as a pose of calculated superiority, occasionally nodding to the crowd with the kind of smile that suggests he's already planning his victory speech. The tournament announcer, a floating blob of translucent gel named Culex, hovers above the arena, addressing the crowd in its melodious voice that somehow sounds condescending even when it's just stating facts. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted carbon-based life forms, today we witness the continuation of a tradition older than most of your civilizations. The winner of today's championship will claim dominion over 3 star systems, including the lucrative mining rights to the Goldilocks Nebula. The crowd murmurs appreciatively. 3 star systems. That's not just bragging rights, that's real power in the galactic economy. The loser, Kalik continues with what might be considered dramatic flair if you're into that sort of thing, faces exile to the Outer Rim, where the only entertainment is asteroid farming and the company of beings who think reality television is high art. Commander Vex's smile widens. Exile? Please. He's been calculating possible moves for this tournament since before some of these species discovered fire. This is going to be embarrassingly easy. That's when Captain Jake Murphy stumbles into the arena. Now, Jake is about as far from galactic champion material as you can get while still technically being sentient. He's a human freight pilot who makes his living hauling cargo between backwater planets, the kind of guy who knows the location of every decent burger joint within 50 parsecs, but couldn't tell you the difference between a quasar and a quarter-pounder. He's wearing a rumpled jumpsuit that's seen better decades. His hair looks like he's styled it with a plasma conduit, and he's carrying a thermos of something that's probably coffee but might be engine coolant. Jake squints at the arena setup, then pulls out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. "Excuse me," he calls out, to no one in particular. "I'm looking for the high-stakes poker tournament. The flyer said Nexus Prime, big prize, bring your A-game." He waves the paper, which appears to be a badly translated advertisement he picked up at some spaceport bar. The crowd falls silent. Even the floating cameras pause their hovering. Commander Vex's 4 eyes narrow as he studies this newcomer. "You're in the wrong place, human. This is the Galactic Chess Championship, not some primitive gambling den." Jake looks around the arena again, taking in the massive holographic displays, the ornate table, the crowd of thousands. Pretty fancy setup for poker. Must be one hell of a buy-in. Suklix the announcer blob quivers, with what might be excitement or possibly indigestion. It's hard to tell with translucent gel beings. "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears we have an unexpected challenger. According to Galactic Tournament Regulation 47B, any sentient being who enters the arena during registration period may compete, provided they can demonstrate basic cognitive function." Jake scratches his head and looks around. "So this is like an open tournament? Cool, what's the ante?" Commander Vex's silver skin begins to shimmer with irritation. "There is no ante, primitive. This is Galactic Chess, the most sophisticated strategic game in the known universe. Each piece represents entire fleets, economic systems, and political alliances. One does not simply—" Right, Jake interrupts, waving his hand dismissively. "Very thematic. I get it. So what's the buy-in? And please tell me you take Galactic Standard credits because I'm a little light on those quantum ducats I keep hearing about." The crowd begins to murmur in confusion. Several alien species are frantically consulting their translation devices, convinced they're missing some crucial context. A delegation of crystalline beings from Sector 9 starts placing side bets on whether the human is experiencing some kind of neurological episode. Culex decides to roll with it. The entry fee is waived for championship matches. Please, Captain Murphy, take your position at the table. Jake shrugs and walks over to the ornate playing surface. The Galactic Chess board is a marvel of engineering, a three-dimensional holographic grid that shifts and morphs based on the player's moves, with pieces that look like tiny starships, space stations, and what appear to be miniature planets. To Jake, it looks like the fanciest poker chip set in the galaxy. Wow, he says, genuinely impressed. These are some serious chips. Are they weighted? I always prefer weighted chips. Better feel, you know? Commander Vex's forehands begin to twitch. Those are not chips, you ignorant. Now, Klux interrupts smoothly. Let us begin with the traditional recitation of the rules for our viewing audience. The announcer's voice takes on a ceremonial tone. Galactic chess, as established by the Treaty of Andromeda Prime, is played on a multi-dimensional board representing the fabric of space-time itself. Each player commands a fleet of pieces with unique movement patterns based on actual stellar mechanics. Jake nods seriously, pulling out a small notebook. Space-time, got it. So like Texas Hold'em but with extra steps? The Dreadnought piece, Culex continues, moves in straight lines across any number of sectors, representing the inexorable advance of military might. Like a rook, classic. The diplomatic envoy moves diagonally, symbolizing the indirect nature of political maneuvering. Bishop, sure, makes sense. Vex leans forward, his four eyes narrowing. Human, do you have any idea what you're doing? Jake grins and taps his temple. Hey, I didn't get where I am today by not knowing when to hold 'em and when to fold 'em. Speaking of which, what's the betting structure? Are we talking limit, no limit, or pot limit? The crowd exchanges bewildered glances. Even the universal translators seem confused, making little beeping sounds of distress. There is no betting structure, Vex says through gritted teeth. This is a game of pure strategy. We move pieces according to ancient protocols established by the greatest minds in galactic history. Right, so like tournament poker. Got it. Jake cracks his knuckles. And what's the blind structure? How long are the levels? A small alien in the front row turns to his companion. Is this human experiencing some kind of cognitive malfunction? I think, his companion whispers back, he might be the most advanced psychological warfare specialist we've ever encountered. Commander Vex straightens in his chair, his confidence wavering slightly. He's studied every known strategic approach to galactic chess, but this human's casual attitude is unlike anything in the literature. Could this be some kind of advanced human tactic? Are they pretending to be ignorant while actually calculating 17 moves ahead? Very well, Vex announces, his voice regaining some authority. Let us begin this educational experience. Jake picks up one of the holographic pieces, a sleek starship that pulses with energy. Nice weight on these chips. Very realistic. Do they light up like this during the whole game, or is this just for show? Those are not, Vex stops himself, realizing he's been repeating the same correction for 5 minutes. Never mind, just make your move. Jake studies the board for a moment, then grins. All right, Commander, let's see what you've got. I'll start with a small bet. He moves his piece forward 2 spaces. And I'm gonna raise you. The crowd gasps. According to the ancient rules of galactic chess, Jake has just executed a modified Kepler's Gambit, one of the most aggressive opening moves in the entire strategic canon. It's the kind of play that takes decades to master, and usually results in either brilliant victory or catastrophic defeat. Commander Vex stares at the board, his 4 hands trembling slightly. How did you? Jake leans back in his chair, completely relaxed. What can I say? Sometimes you've got to play the player, not the cards. Commander Vex stares at the board like it's just personally insulted his entire bloodline. The modified Kepler's Gambit. In 300 years of galactic chess history, only 12 beings have ever successfully executed this opening move, and 11 of them were certified strategic geniuses. The 12th one went insane shortly after, and now runs a small tea shop on Proxima Centauri. Fascinating, Vex mutters, his forehands hovering over his pieces. A psychological approach, very human. Jake takes a sip from his thermos and makes a face. Definitely engine coolant, he says to himself, then looks up at Vex. Sorry, what? Oh, right. Your move, Commander. Don't take too long thinking about it. In my experience, the best plays are usually the ones that feel right in your gut. The crowd leans forward in anticipation. Several alien bookmakers are frantically adjusting their odds, and at least 3 different news networks are broadcasting live coverage to their respective galaxies. The commentary booth is in complete chaos. I have to admit, announces Krell, the mantoid sports commentator, in 400 years of covering strategic competitions, I have never seen anything quite like this human's approach. His CoCommenator, a cybernetic being known only as Unit 7, processes data at light speed before responding. Analysis indicates Captain Murphy's opening move has a 67% probability of success, but only if followed by the Vortex Defense or the Nebula Offensive. Both of those require computational abilities far beyond typical human neural capacity. Unless, Krell suggests, he's not actually computing at all. What if he's operating on pure instinct? Impossible. No being can play galactic chess on instinct alone. The variables are too complex, the strategic depth too vast. Meanwhile, Jake is studying the board with the same expression most people reserve for trying to remember where they left their keys. He picks up another piece, a space station that resembles a crystalline flower, and turns it over in his hands. These are really well made, he says appreciatively. Must have cost a fortune. Are they hand-carved or machine-fabricated? Vex's eye twitches. They are holographic projections, representing actual strategic assets worth trillions of credits. Ah, so like tournament chips with really good graphics. I like it. Jake places the piece back on the board, moving it to a position that shouldn't work according to any known strategic doctrine. There we go. Call. The crowd erupts in confused chatter. Jake has just performed what appears to be a spiral convergence, a defensive maneuver so advanced that most strategic computers can't calculate its implications without overheating. Commander Vex's confident smile begins to crack around the edges. How did you know about the spiral convergence? Jake looks genuinely puzzled. The what now? I just figured if you're going to put pressure on that side of the board, I should probably protect my investment over here. Basic risk management. Risk management, Vex repeats slowly, as if tasting the words. You're treating this like a financial transaction. Well, yeah. Aren't we playing for control of 3 star systems? That's a pretty significant portfolio. You don't just gamble with assets like that without proper risk assessment. In the commentary booth, Unit 7's processors are running so hot they're starting to smoke. This is unprecedented. The human appears to be applying economic theory to strategic warfare. The implications are staggering. Or, Krell adds thoughtfully, he has no idea what he's doing and is accidentally reinventing the entire field of strategic studies. Commander Vex makes his next move, a classic vortex defense, exactly as Unit 7 predicted. It's textbook perfect, the kind of move that gets analyzed in strategy academies across the galaxy. He leans back with renewed confidence. Your move, Captain. Let's see how your risk management handles the vortex defense. Jake scratches his chin and studies the board. To everyone watching, it looks like he's calculating complex strategic probabilities. In reality, he's trying to figure out if that piece that looks like a tiny planet is supposed to be a high-value chip or just decorative. You know what, Jake says finally, I'm feeling lucky. He moves a piece that resembles a sleek fighter craft directly into what appears to be a suicidal position, all in. The arena falls completely silent. Even the holographic displays seem to pause in shock. Jake has just executed a quantum sacrifice, a move so risky and complex that it's only theoretical. No one in the history of galactic chess has ever actually attempted it in real play because the computational requirements are beyond the capacity of most organic minds. Commander Vex's forehands began to shake. That's impossible. The quantum sacrifice requires calculating 47 different probability matrices simultaneously. The neural pathways alone would... Look, Commander, Jake interrupts. I don't know about any quantum whatever, but I know when to double down on a good hand, and right now I'm feeling pretty good about my position. He takes another sip of his thermos and makes that face again. Seriously, I really need to label my drinks better. In the crowd, a small alien turns to his companion with wide eyes. I think we're witnessing the birth of a new form of strategic thinking. Or, his companion whispers back, the most elaborate psychological warfare campaign in galactic history. Commander Vex stares at the board, his confidence evaporating like atmosphere from a breached hull. The human's casual attitude, his strange terminology, his apparent ignorance of basic strategic principles, it's all so perfectly calculated to be unsettling. This isn't just a game anymore. This is psychological warfare at its most sophisticated level. Your move, Commander. Jake says cheerfully, completely oblivious to the existential crisis he's causing. And hey, if you need to take a break or anything, I totally understand. This is pretty intense for a friendly game of poker. Commander Vex's 4 hands hover over the board like a surgeon preparing for the most delicate operation of his career. Sweat, actual sweat, begins to form on his silver skin, something that hasn't happened since his academy days, when he first learned that strategic failure could result in actual death, rather than just theoretical embarrassment. Take your time, Jake says, pulling out what appears to be a sandwich from his jacket pocket. I packed lunch. You want half? It's peanut butter and jelly. Classic Earth combination. The crowd watches in fascination as the human unwraps his sandwich with the same casual demeanor most beings reserve for breathing. Here he is, locked in the most prestigious strategic competition in the galaxy, and he's eating a sandwich. The psychological implications are staggering. The human is attempting to establish social dominance through the casual consumption of nutrients, whispers Dr. Kellix, the galaxy's foremost expert on psychological warfare, to his research assistant. It's a power play designed to demonstrate his complete lack of concern for the opponent's strategic capabilities. His assistant frantically scribbles notes. Should we be documenting this for the Strategic Academy? Document everything. This could revolutionize our understanding of intimidation tactics. Jake takes a bite of his sandwich and studies the board while chewing. You know, Commander, you seem a little tense. This is supposed to be fun, right? I mean, sure, there's a lot of money on the table, but that's what makes it exciting. Commander Vex's eye twitches. Fun? This is the Galactic Chess Championship. The fate of entire star systems hangs in the balance. Fun is not the objective. Well, there's your problem right there, Jake says, gesturing with his sandwich. You're thinking too much. Sometimes you've got to trust your instincts. Go with your gut. Speaking of which, this sandwich is really hitting the spot. Are you sure you don't want half? The offer of food sharing sends ripples of confusion through the alien spectators. Several species begin consulting their databases on human social customs, convinced they're missing some crucial strategic element. Vex finally makes his move, a conservative stellar blockade designed to limit Jake's options. It's the kind of safe, textbook play that wins tournaments through careful calculation rather than bold innovation. Jake glances at the board, takes another bite of his sandwich, and immediately moves a piece that looks like a space station, shaped like a pretzel. I'll see your blockade, and raise you a station. The crowd gasps. Jake has just broken the stellar blockade, using a technique that doesn't exist in any strategic manual. Worse, he's done it while eating a sandwich and apparently thinking about something else entirely. That's not possible, Vex stammers. The stellar blockade is mathematically sound. There are only 3 theoretical counters, and none of them involve... Look, buddy, Jake interrupts. I don't know about mathematical whatever, but I know when someone's trying to box me in. And when someone tries to box me in, I find a way around the box, or through it, or sometimes I just build a bigger box. He pauses mid-chew. That metaphor got away from me a little bit. In the commentary booth, Unit 7's processors are now visibly sparking. I cannot compute this human strategy. My analysis subroutines are returning error messages in languages that don't exist. Perhaps, Krell suggests, that's the point. What if the human strategy is to be strategically incomprehensible? That's not a strategy. That's chaos. Exactly. Commander Vex studies the board with growing desperation. Every conventional response he considers seems inadequate against Jake's unconventional approach. It's like trying to use precision instruments to catch smoke. You know what your problem is, Jake says conversationally, finishing his sandwich and wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. You're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. That's rookie mistake number 1 in any competitive situation. I am not a rookie, Vex snaps, his composure finally cracking. I am a 4-time galactic champion, with strategic credentials, from 17 different academic institutions. Sure, Jake nods agreeably. I can tell you've got the book learning down, but sometimes the book is wrong. Sometimes you've got to write your own book. He leans forward conspiratorially. Want to know a secret? The best poker players aren't the ones who memorize all the odds. They're the ones who know when to ignore the odds entirely. This casual mention of ignoring mathematical probability sends several alien mathematicians in the crowd into what can only be described as academic seizures. The very concept of deliberately disregarding statistical analysis is so foreign to their way of thinking that their brains are essentially blue screening. Vex makes his next move, a desperate Quantum Pincer designed to force Jake into a no-win situation. It's a move that requires 15 minutes of calculation for most players, but Vex executes it in 3 minutes, driven by pure panic. Jake looks at the board, tilts his head like a confused dog, and then grins. Oh, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get me to fold by making the pot too expensive to call. Classic bluff technique. This is not a bluff, Vex insists. This is a mathematically perfect strategic position. You cannot possibly... All in, Jake announces, moving 3 pieces simultaneously in what appears to be a completely random pattern. Let's see those cards, Commander. The arena erupts in chaos. Jake has just performed what can only be described as a strategic supernova, a move so complex and unprecedented that the tournament computers crash trying to analyze it. Emergency technicians rush to repair the holographic displays, which are flickering between 17 different probability calculations. What have you done? Vex whispers, staring at the board in horror. I called your bluff, Jake says simply. And judging by the look on your face, I'm thinking you weren't holding the cards you wanted me to think you were holding. Commander Vex's 4 hands begin to tremble as he realizes the terrible truth. The human's seemingly random moves have created a strategic position that defies analysis. It's either the work of a genius beyond comprehension, or a madman who stumbled onto something beyond genius. I don't understand, Vex mutters. This isn't possible. Strategic theory doesn't allow for... Theory's great, Jake interrupts. But sometimes you've got to play the game in front of you, not the game in the textbook. Your move, Commander. Unless you want to fold? The word fold hangs in the air like a challenge. Commander Vex, 4-time Galactic Champion, strategic genius, and pride of the Zephyrian Empire, stares at the board and realizes he has no idea what to do next. For the first time in his career, he's not playing Galactic Chess. He's playing Jake Murphy's game, and he doesn't even know what the rules are. Commander Vex sits frozen at the board, his 4 hands trembling like leaves in a solar storm. The silver sheen of his skin has dulled to a sickly gray, and his eyes, all 4 of them, dart between the holographic pieces with the desperation of a drowning man looking for driftwood. The crowd has fallen into a silence so complete that you could hear a photon drop. Jake, meanwhile, has discovered that his thermos has a second compartment with actual coffee in it. Oh, hey, there we go, he says cheerfully, taking a sip. Much better than the engine coolant. You know, Commander, you really should try to relax. You're making this way more complicated than it needs to be. Complicated? Vex's voice cracks like a teenager hitting puberty. You've just created a strategic position that violates 17 fundamental principles of galactic warfare theory. The computer systems can't even process what you've done. Computers, Jake waves dismissively. They're great for calculating stuff, but they don't have intuition. They can't feel the flow of the game, you know? They can't read the other player's tells. Tells? Vex looks around frantically, as if Jake might be communicating with hidden accomplices. What tells? This is Galactic Chess, not some primitive... Right now, Jake interrupts, leaning back in his chair with the confidence of someone who's never heard of imposter syndrome. Your tell is that you're overthinking everything. You're so worried about making the perfect move that you're not making any move at all. That's called analysis paralysis, and it's the kiss of death in competitive play. In the commentary booth, Unit 7 has given up trying to analyze the game and is now running diagnostics on his own cognitive processes. I am experiencing what humans might call an existential crisis. My understanding of strategic theory has been fundamentally challenged. Join the club, Krell mutters, watching Vex's continued paralysis. I've been calling strategic competitions for 4 centuries, and I've never seen anything like this. The human has somehow weaponized confusion itself. Jake takes another sip of his coffee and studies Vex with the same expression he might use to evaluate a particularly stubborn cargo container. Tell you what, Commander, I'm feeling generous. How about we make this interesting? Interesting? Vex's voice is barely a whisper. How could this possibly be more interesting? Well, Jake says, cracking his knuckles. You're clearly having trouble deciding on your next move, so how about this? I'll give you a free pass on the next play. You can take back your last move and try something else. No penalties, no judgment, just a friendly do-over. The crowd collectively loses its mind. Offering a dover in the Galactic Chess Championship is like offering to rewrite the laws of physics as a casual favor. Several species don't even have words for such unprecedented sportsmanship, and their translators are making increasingly desperate beeping sounds. You can't do that, Vex stammers. The rules don't allow for... Rules are just guidelines, Jake interrupts with a shrug. Besides, what's the fun in winning if your opponent isn't playing their best game? I want to beat you when you're at full strength, not when you're having some kind of strategic breakdown. This casual dismissal of formal regulations sends the tournament officials into a frenzied huddle. Kulix, the announcer blob, quivers with what might be excitement or possibly terror. Again, hard to tell with translucent gel beings. The human has just offered a mercy ruling, Klix announces to the crowd. In 300 years of championship history, no competitor has ever voluntarily offered tactical advantage to their opponent. I am not sure if this is the greatest display of sportsmanship in galactic history, or the most sophisticated psychological warfare ever attempted. Commander Vex stares at Jake with a mixture of confusion and growing horror. Why would you do that? You have me at a disadvantage. Any rational player would press that advantage. Because, Jake says, finishing his coffee and setting down the thermos, I didn't come here to beat a broken opponent. I came here to win a game. And you can't really win a game if the other player isn't actually playing. The psychological impact of this statement hits Vex like a meteor strike. Here he is, the four-time galactic champion, the strategic genius of the Zephyrian Empire, and a human freight pilot is offering him charity because he's not playing well enough to provide adequate competition? I don't need your pity, Vex snarls, his pride finally overriding his confusion. I am Commander Vex Thornwall. I have defeated the greatest strategic minds in 47 star systems. I will not be patronized by some ignorant human who doesn't even understand the game he's playing. There we go, Jake grins. Now you're talking. That's the spirit I want to see. So what's it going to be, Commander? Are you going to make a move? Or are we going to sit here all day talking about how great you used to be? The crowd holds its breath as Vex reaches for his pieces with renewed determination. His pride has been wounded, his reputation challenged, and his entire worldview shaken to its core. But he's still Commander Vex Thornwall, and he's not going down without a fight. He makes his move, a brilliant cascade offensive that should have been impossible given the board position. It's the kind of desperate, inspired play that separates true champions from mere masters. The crowd erupts in appreciation for the tactical brilliance. Jake looks at the board, nods approvingly, and then does something that defies all logical explanation. He moves a single piece, a small reconnaissance ship that's been sitting unused in the corner, to a position that appears to serve no strategic purpose whatsoever. All in, he announces calmly. Everything I've got. The arena falls silent again. Unit 7's processors actually catch fire and have to be extinguished by emergency technicians. Krell just stares at the board in stunned silence. Commander Vex examines Jake's move from every angle, his four hands tracing invisible calculations in the air. The reconnaissance ship is now in a position that shouldn't threaten anything, shouldn't defend anything, and shouldn't accomplish anything, according to any known strategic doctrine. I don't understand, Vex mutters. That move serves no purpose. It's strategically meaningless. Is it? Jake asks with a smile that's equal parts friendly and terrifying. Are you sure about that? That's when Vex sees it. The reconnaissance ship's new position creates a chain reaction that affects 17 different strategic elements simultaneously. It's not just a move, it's a cascade of moves that unfolds across the entire board like a strategic avalanche. Impossible, Vex whispers. The computational requirements alone would require... Sometimes, Jake interrupts, you don't need to compute everything. Sometimes you just need to feel where the game wants to go and help it get there. Commander Vex stares at the board, then at Jake, then back at the board. His four hands fall to his sides in defeat. I surrender. The arena erupts in chaos. Jake Murphy, freight pilot and accidental strategic genius, has just won the Galactic Chess Championship by playing a game he didn't know he was playing against an opponent who forgot that sometimes the best strategy is no strategy at all. Jake looks around at the cheering crowd with genuine surprise. Wait, he says, finally beginning to realize something might be amiss. This wasn't poker, was it? The arena has descended into complete pandemonium. Alien spectators are cheering, crying, fainting, and in at least 3 cases, apparently undergoing some kind of religious awakening. The holographic displays are flashing champion in 47 different languages, including 2 that were thought to be extinct and 1 that doesn't technically exist yet. Jake sits in his chair, looking around at the chaos with the expression of someone who's just woken up in the wrong century. So, he says slowly, this really wasn't poker? Kulix, the announcer blob, quivers with what is definitely excitement now. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted carbon-based life forms, I present to you the new Galactic Chess Champion, Captain Jake Murphy of Earth. Galactic Chess, Jake repeats, his voice climbing an octave. I thought that was just a really fancy name for your poker variant, like Texas Hold'em, but with more space. Commander Vex, who has been sitting in stunned silence since his surrender, finally looks up. You mean to tell me that you've been playing Galactic Chess without knowing it was Galactic Chess? I mean, I figured it out somewhere around the time you mentioned star systems in exile, Jake admits. But by then I was kind of committed to the bit, you know? I didn't want to seem rude by backing out. The crowd's cheering falters as this information sinks in. Unit 7, whose processors have been replaced with emergency backup systems, speaks in a voice filled with electronic disbelief. Analysis indicates that Captain Murphy has achieved strategic mastery through complete ignorance of the subject matter. This should be, theoretically, impossible. But it happened, Krell adds, his voice filled with something approaching awe. He didn't just win, he revolutionized the entire game by not knowing what game he was playing. A small delegation of tournament officials approaches the table, carrying what appears to be a crown made of crystallized starlight. It's actually quite beautiful, if you're into that sort of thing. Captain Murphy, the head official begins, by right of conquest and strategic superiority, you are hereby declared the Galactic Chess Champion and granted dominion over 3 star systems, including the lucrative mining rights to the Goldilocks Nebula. Jake stares at the crown like it might bite him. Star systems? Actual star systems? With planets and people and taxes? Approximately 47 billion sentient beings across 312 inhabited worlds, the official confirms helpfully. Oh no, Jake says, backing away from the crown. No. I haul freight for a living. I don't know anything about running star systems. I can barely manage my own laundry schedule. Commander Vex, still processing his devastating defeat, looks up with renewed interest. You're refusing the championship prize. I'm not refusing it, Jake clarifies. I'm just redirecting it. Look, Commander, you're clearly the better player here. You actually know what you're doing. I just got lucky with some really good bluffs. They weren't bluffs, Vex says quietly. You genuinely believed you were playing poker, so everything you did was authentic. That's what made your psychological warfare so effective. You weren't pretending to be confident. You actually were confident. Jake considers this. So I accidentally created the perfect poker face by not knowing I was supposed to have a poker face? Essentially, yes. The tournament officials look increasingly confused. Captain Murphy, you cannot simply transfer your winnings to the defeated opponent. The championship must be claimed by the victor. Okay, fine, Jake says, accepting the crown and immediately placing it on Vex's head. I claim the championship and immediately delegate all administrative duties to my strategic advisor, Commander Vex Thornwall. He'll handle the day-to-day operations while I continue my very important work of hauling cargo containers between planets. The crowd doesn't know whether to cheer or riot. This is unprecedented in galactic history. A champion who wins by accident and then immediately delegates his responsibilities to his defeated opponent. You realize, Vex says, adjusting the crown awkwardly with his 4 hands, that this makes you the most unconventional leader in galactic history. Good thing I'm not actually leading anything, Jake grins. That's your job now. I'm just the guy who won a game he didn't know he was playing. Culex, the announcer blob, attempts to restore some order to the proceedings. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted carbon-based life forms, it appears we have witnessed not just a championship victory, but the creation of an entirely new form of governmental structure, the accidental delegation democracy. Is that what we're calling it? Jake asks. I was thinking more like the, I have no idea what I'm doing, so you handle it, system. That's less catchy, Krell observes from the commentary booth. As the ceremony continues around him, Jake pulls out his crumpled piece of paper and studies it again. You know, I really should read these flyers more carefully. Next time I see high-stakes, strategic competition, I'm going to ask some follow-up questions. Commander Vex, still adjusting to his new role as strategic advisor to the accidental champion, extends one of his 4 hands. Captain Murphy, despite my earlier difficulty understanding your approach, I must admit that I learned something valuable today. Yeah? What's that? Sometimes, the best strategy is to forget you're supposed to have a strategy. Jake shakes the offered hand. And sometimes, the best way to win is to not know you're supposed to lose. The crowd finally settles into sustained applause as the reality of what they've witnessed begins to sink in. They haven't just seen a championship match. They've seen the birth of a legend. The story of Jake Murphy, the human who won the Galactic Chess Championship by treating it like a poker game, will be told in cantinas and academies across the galaxy for generations to come. So, Jake says, looking around at the still cheering crowd, "This has been fun and all, but I do have a cargo delivery scheduled for tomorrow. Before I go, though," he raises his voice to address the crowd, "does anyone know where a guy can find a good poker game around here? I've got a hankering to play some cards, and after all this, I think I could really use a game where I actually know what I'm doing." The arena erupts in laughter, and somewhere in the crowd, a small alien turns to his companion and says, "You know what? I think I like humans." His companion nods. "They're completely insane, but in the most entertaining way possible." And that, as they say, is how Jake Murphy became the most famous freight pilot in galactic history. Not for his cargo hauling skills, but for proving that sometimes the best way to master a game is to never learn the rules in the first place.